Welcome to the Man in Motion podcast, episode 2. This is working, and that's the problem. I'm Bob. This is a show about what it means to be a man in today's world, navigating real life with strength, purpose, and clarity. No hype, no hacks, no fixing yourself. Just awareness, responsibility, and choosing direction while you're already in motion. No excuses, ever forward. So earlier in this series, I asked a question. Did you choose this life? Or did you just default into it? Turns out that simple question, it's not so simple at all. See, that question is very interesting because it does something. It's not motivating you, and it's not an inspiring question. And in fact, it's a question that destabilizes you. And that's not a problem. That is actually the point. See, a question like that is not meant to make you feel better. It's meant to make you stop. It's meant to make you interrupt your momentum. And it's meant to make you look. It's not motivational. And it signals to you that this is a serious thing, that it really needs looking at. And here's the hardest part of that question, and it's the part that really matters. That question only works if you can be brutally honest with yourself about it. And we're not talking about honesty as a virtue. We're not talking about honesty as courage. We're talking about honesty that for this question to work and for it to really matter, you have to be honest. It's a requirement. If you can't be honest with yourself about this question, it doesn't matter. Nothing you do from it is going to matter. Because the answers you get, it's not that they're just wrong. It's that they're inaccurate and they're working from the wrong set of directions. And these inaccurate answers, they don't lead you to a new place. That's you just protecting what's already there. And they just keep you where you already are. So if that question has stirred something in you last time, that's why. Accuracy demands effort. We touched on the idea of autopilot, of just putting your head down and getting to work. And when we talk about it, most people hear laziness, and that's really not what this is. Autopilot is what happens when you live inside a system that just rewards output and reliability, endurance, and just keeping the status quo. And it never asks how you're actually doing. And if you think about it, you realize you didn't choose that. You just kind of adapted to it. Work, for example. Most of us, our jobs get to a point where we doesn't really require awareness. Your work does require results. And those results are what get rewarded. Your capacity gets ignored. It's all about what can you provide? What can you put out? What can you give to me? How can you help the company? And that's what's rewarded. It's not you as a person. It's just what can you do? And eventually it gets to a point where it looks like you're giving everything you have. But that's not actually success. It's called burnout. Our family lives often don't reward presence. And I don't mean presence as in your physical presence. I'm talking about as in your conscious thought. We show up, we go through the motions, we sit down at dinner, we take the kids wherever, we show up for our parents, to mow the grass, whatever that that is. And that's about repetition and consistency. And we get lost in the idea. We think that because we're attending something, we're present. That being needed for what we can do is the same as being known. And the big one is that reliability. We start confusing reliability with connection. The idea that if you ask this person to show up and help, they'll be there. But is that really connection? Culturally, even. As a culture, we have idolized the guy who keeps going and going and going and doesn't quit. And we've demonized the guy who stops and asks why. We admire someone's endurance. But if someone is introspective or thoughtful, we question it. And even us individually, slowing down feels wrong. We feel like we're not living up to a standard or an ideal. And momentum of constantly going and going and going and going, it feels safer. So you learn to function, you learn to perform, you learn to push. None of that requires you to be awake. You can be disciplined and still be asleep. And eventually, your function becomes your identity. Think about it. When was the last time you introduced yourself to someone? Put your hand out, you shake hands with them. Hey, my name's Bob. I'm a fill in your job. Does that really define who you are? That's your function. That's your societal position. But is that who you are? And as we start to spiral, we tell ourselves, I just got to be tougher. I just got to be stronger. I just got to be better. And that discipline that we use to hide things starts hiding dysfunction. From the outside, that life, it looks solid, man. It looks like that's the life I want. I want to be like him. But I bet if you talked with him, he'd say on the inside, it feels flat. Or that he's walking around irritated most of the time. Or something's off. He just can't put it to words. You see that gap between how it looks and how it feels. That is the autopilot. Is the autopilot taking over. Everything looks fine, doesn't feel fine. Just like we talked about, you start getting that emotional numbness. You just can't quite get to your feelings except that frustration and that irritation and that anger. And then eventually, even your rest doesn't really restore you anymore. You go to bed and wake up just as tired as when you went to bed. You sleep restlessly. And it's because you can't relax. Even at the end of the day, you come home and You're not able to get comfortable. You throw yourself on the couch or in your favorite chair. You grab a beverage, and it just doesn't hit like it used to. You see, because autopilot, that autopilot sounds great, but it's not free. It costs. It costs a lot, and it's not in obvious ways. There's a phrase I love for this. It's, the phrase is death by 1,000 little cuts. And it's so appropriate to this because it's this idea that if you're just looking at the individual things, they're tiny. Yeah, I didn't get the thank you I wanted. Yeah, I didn't get the hug I wanted. I didn't get to shake their hand. I didn't get the recognition. I didn't get to engage. I didn't get to connect. Individually, those things, they look small. And they might bother you a little bit. But overall, it's a minor thing. So we brush it off and we ignore it. But when there's 10 of them, 20, 50, 100, 1,000, that's where it gets bad. Because it's no one large giant single event. It's this slow, quiet erosion of our identity, of who we are. And we sit there and we take it. We're men. That's what we do. And we end up in this position where it's not a dramatic collapse. It's not some huge thing that just everything comes crashing down. It's a minor event. You'll trip on a shoelace. You'll drop your cup of coffee. You'll miss a turn as you're driving. And that'll be the straw that broke the camel's back. We talked about the costs of this autopilot. And, the first one that comes to mind is this idea of emotional flattening. You're not numb. Exactly. You're just muted. Your highs aren't as high. Your lows tend to be lower. It's like everything's shifting down. Your joy will be distant feeling, like it's happening to someone else and you're watching it. That's true not just of joy, but also really of anything, of any of your positive emotions, your pride, your happiness, your love, your satisfaction. All of it starts getting more and more distant. Except for irritation. This guy tends to survive. It's like a cockroach. Your fuse gets so short. Things that would have never bothered you before are just, you have no tolerance for them. And patience gone. Patience is out the door. It's because as all your emotions are shifting like this, all your feelings are changing, we feel the need to protect ourselves. Because at some level, we are aware of what's happening. We just don't acknowledge it. But anger protects that. Whereas recognizing it and addressing it, that's vulnerability. And that's what we're already trying to avoid, is that vulnerability. And our irritation, our anger, that motivates us, that moves us, that irritation, it feels functional. And the things that get in our way when we're angry or we're irritated tend to keep their distance. But what is it? What does that distance cost us? I would bet if you went to the people that you are closest to, I bet you they were the ones that felt it first. And to be clear, I'm not saying you don't care about these people, but you're running on an empty gas tank, dude. Like, what do you expect? You don't even have enough left for yourself. How are you going to have enough to give others? But I would bet if you went and talked to them, they would tell you, yeah, you get snappy. Yeah, you were present, but you didn't have any presence here. And eventually the emotional availability was just reduced, if not gone. And I bet if you looked at those same people from your side of the story, you would notice something else creeping in. Resentment. Low grade, but constant. And it's not just towards your loved ones. I'm talking about against work. You'd be resentful of responsibility. You'd be resentful of the people that rely on you. Even sleep stops working the way it used to. You lay down at night or to take a nap in the afternoon, and you don't feel like you're restored. You feel like you just hit the pause button for a few minutes. Even your days off don't refill. It doesn't reset you. And tired becomes default. Like that is your baseline now is tired. And the craziest part is we normalize all this. We just say, this is life right now. Or everyone's tired. I'm no different. I'm the same as everyone else. Nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. I'm fine. Just didn't sleep enough last night, or I slept poorly, or this stupid pillow, I can't get comfortable, or the dog snored, or my wife snored, or pick an excuse. But we refuse to look at this because nothing is obviously broken. Nothing's obviously wrong. We live the lie, and it's dangerous. And this lie, it keeps the autopilot intact. And it sounds reasonable. It sounds like it's the mature thing. And it's what the adults say, and it's responsible. Everyone says it. It's socially acceptable. It's not dramatic. And no one thinks to question it. And that lie is simply this. This is how life is at this stage. Whatever your stage is. You look at all the other men around you, and a lot of them feel like this. And that line works because it explains everything. And it doesn't require you to look at anything. It doesn't require thought. It doesn't require you to examine the question. It explains your exhaustion. It explains your distance from everyone else. And it doesn't require any work. And it lets you normalize what's actually costing you. There's a meme running around, and I forget the exact context of it, but it talks about basically every guy is running around with his check engine light on, doing 800 miles an hour while shotgunning an energy drink. Yeah, yeah. The first time I saw that, I went, wow, that hits a little too close to home. And I kind of ran from it. When we normalize this cost, we dismiss all these warning signs because this is normal, right? It's not a problem, it's not a bad thing, and it hides what it's costing us. Even our pain is downgraded because, oh, I'm fine. Everyone around you is saying the same version. We're all feeling the same fatigue. And here's the crazy part. We validate each other with it, right? This, oh, this is just how life is. We all validate it because none of us want to look at it. We're all afraid to look at it and realize what we're doing to ourselves. And this group comparison, it kills any concern. And to me, this is one of my biggest regrets because that lie quietly takes everything that is important to you and pushes it into that category on your to-do list called later. Your hopes, your dreams, aspirations, they all become part of that someday, that mystical time where everything we want to do gets done. And we tell ourselves, I just got to wait. I just got to wait. My time will come. My time will come. And we use that patience to disguise our drift as we drift further and further and further from who we actually are and who we want to be and where we want to go. And the crazy part is that lie is not actually entirely false, but it's incomplete. See, there are times where you have to say, this is what I just got to get through right now. But there needs to be an endpoint. There needs to be a trajectory. There needs to be a set goal to get to where this has to stop. So up until this point, we've been talking about patterns, about systems, about conditioning and cost. We've been talking about how we all share this ideal, and how we all see it and we all normalize it. And we run from looking at it. And we're afraid to, even to our closest friends, to put any pressure against that idea, because if we make them look at it, then we have to look at it. So instead of asking why things are the way we are, there's a more uncomfortable question we're going to move to. The last time we spoke, I asked a question. It was a different question. I said, did you choose this life or did you just default into it? So the question we're going to ask now, and this is important, and if nothing changes, where does this version of you end up? And I'm not talking next year. I'm not talking in some crisis moment. just someday, over time, how far will you drift? How much resentment will you accumulate? How much will you have eroded? And again, you don't need an answer today, right? We're not pressing. I'm not demanding that you email me an answer. I'm not going to grade it like a test. But at the same time, avoiding these questions don't make them go away. And just like that other question, without honesty, it doesn't actually answer anything. It doesn't help. For these questions to really matter, for these questions to really mean something, you have to look into that place inside yourself and be honest. And it's going to hurt. But that accuracy is going to matter. So sit with that for a moment. Don't worry about the answer. Don't want an answer today. This isn't homework. And I'll even go one step further, that when you are ready to answer it, you'll know that you're ready to answer it. Noticing what's actually true here isn't the problem. There was a point a while back where I was working pretty close to 60 hours a week. I was always tired. I woke up as tired as I went to bed. Emotionally, everything was distant and muted, except irritation. Irritation, anger, frustration, the more negative, productive emotions, the ones that make you move, they were always right there. You know, I was showing up, I was getting things done, I was building things that mattered to me. And in my mind, that's just what discipline was. I was starting Madison's Path. We were building the Unstuck program. I was involved in my church, and I was helping run a grief share program on top of my job, doing close to 60 hours a week. And I didn't think anything was wrong. I just thought that's what I was supposed to do as a man. That was just the cost of me being a man, of me trying to build the life I wanted. And then one day, I was working on some paperwork, and I was looking over a worksheet that I had come across. It was in a stack of things I had been given. And I just glanced down at the list of things on it, and I remember reading the list thinking, that's me. Yep, that one. Oh, I got that one too. That's me. And I went down this list, and it must have been a list of 30 or 40 things. And I had most of them. And then I looked at the title, and it was a worksheet on for a clinical burnout assessment. That moment in itself didn't fix anything. Nothing in my life changed that day. I didn't mystically have the answers. But what I did do was I stopped telling myself I was fine. Once I could see what I was actually doing and what was actually happening, I couldn't pretend that I didn't see it anymore. That awareness didn't solve the problem, but it did change my direction. And that really is the only point I'm making here. Awareness isn't a weakness, and it's not a failure. We're very afraid to look at ourselves too closely. It's almost like there's shame in being introspective. I think we need to examine that. So, for our next episode, we're going to talk about where this idea came from. And we're going to look at what most men are actually protecting. That's it for today. Take what's useful, leave what's not. Choose and keep moving.